Out tonight. I really appreciate seeing everybody, seeing the community here. Superintendent Hopkins is going to grab the sign-in sheet. So this is sort of last call for right now to sign in to speak. We'll start the meeting officially in just a moment and then announce the public comment section. So what I'll do is I'll call from the list and then have people go up and share their thoughts.
Diamond.
Yeah. And all right.
There's 2 more seats up front.
So depends on what you have. So you can stand here. So like.
All right. I see a few people still coming, and I do want to get the meeting started, you know, in a timely fashion here. I know we're pretty full at this point, and I appreciate everybody showing up. Let's see. I think we've got a little bit of standing room left in here, but we are kind of running out of space. So we will move ahead as best we can. So good evening, everybody. Let's see, this is the February 28th Special Policy Committee meeting of the MSAD11 school board. So it's the policy committee working meeting. The agenda has been posted and has just a few items on it. All our meetings are public. We have added in the public comment section here. So I'm officially going to call the meeting to order. We've reviewed from Terry McGuire, our technology director, this meeting is being live streamed, and the green light means it's being recorded. I can hear pretty minute whispers even, so just to be mindful as we're doing that. So meetings in order. What we'll do is go around and do introductions for the policy committee members and then school board members in general. And then we do have MSAD11 administrative staff here. So my name is Tony Veet. I am the chair of the policy committee for MSAD11.
Matt Lillybridge.
Joanne.
Joanne O'Brien, Gardner.
Jack.
Jack Pitteroff.
Molly.
Molly Rogers.
Great, thanks so much. And then rest of the board members.
Jim Lothbridge.
Diane Potter.
Chris McLaughlin.
Becky Fless. Megan Carlson.
Jeff Hanley.
All right, thanks so much. Tonight we're here to discuss one policy in particular, and that is ACAA, transgender and gender expansive students. One of the things that came from the last board meeting was an interest in having further public comment about this policy. So what I'd like to do, actually I have a piece to read here that'll take just a moment. which is our preparation for public commentary. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to convene into the public comment period of our meeting. State law in Maine requires a public comment item on agendas of a full meeting of the school board. We also believe it is crucial for us to hear from our community members about their concerns and issues, and so are pleased to have this as an agenda item for this policy committee meeting. Having said that, please note that the board members on the committee are here to listen. The public comment period is not designed to be a discussion. Accordingly, please do not expect the board or this committee to respond to your concerns and questions tonight. This is because we take your concerns and questions seriously and want to have sufficient time to process and research issues if need be. We will, if appropriate, respond to your questions and concerns at a future meeting or have the proper staff member get back to you at the appropriate time. I also want to point out that under state and federal privacy laws, we were unable to entertain any comments or questions about school personnel, particular student matters, any rumors presented as facts that compromise the privacy of others, and any health or medical information protected as confidential. Please know, however, that we take all concerns very seriously. On any matter of concern, we would ask you to go through the appropriate administrative channels. Finally, we recognize that right now our nation and our community are polarized on a number of issues. That said, we want our school board and committee meetings to serve as an example to our students that members of our school board and members of our community can deal with controversial issues in a civil manner and demonstrate mutual respect for one another. In that spirit, we will insist that all speakers and members of the audience maintain civility and respect for any divergent views that others possess. We ask that speakers please address comments to the board committee directly rather than to the audience. Speakers may address items pertinent to tonight's meeting agenda or any topic related to the school unit's programs, policies, or operations. Let me be clear. Any statement made that includes personally identifiable comments about a student will not be permitted. In the unlikely event that the meeting becomes unruly, the committee will recess the meeting and return once order has been restored. Finally, I want to remind everyone that you may submit written comments to the board in lieu of speaking during the public comment period if you so choose. Regarding the protocol for this evening, please review the board pamphlet, Welcome to our School Board Meeting, that provides a copy of policy BEDH, Public Participation at Board Meetings, that explicitly outlines the manner in which the public comment will be managed. Individuals who wish to speak are required to fill out the sign-in form. Those who wish to speak will be required to state their name and town or city of residence before beginning remarks. Consistent with policy BEDH, the board will hear public comments from residents and employees of the school unit first. If there is time remaining in the public comment period, once all residents have had the opportunity to speak, the board will permit comments from non-residents. The board will now entertain public comments for 20 minutes. Actually, I think we'll extend that. I'd like to make sure we hear as many people as possible. Each individual speaker is allotted 2 minutes. The individual time limits will be enforced so that as many members of the public who wish to speak may be allowed to do so. So I will read from the list. Thank you, everybody, for signing in on this who did, and everybody else who showed up for this. What I'll do is I'll read through and take people from the 4 sending towns for MSAD11, and then we'll return to people from other towns, other areas, if time allows. Thank you. So I have Lindsay Soroy or Molly.
I'm gonna have my sister speak on my behalf because just this morning I had my wisdom tooth out and I'm not sure if I'll be able to speak clearly, but I wasn't gonna miss this meeting.
All right, for everybody that's speaking, I'm gonna be the timekeeper. So if you pay attention to me, I'll let you know when you're 1 minute in, and I'll let you know when you got 15 seconds left. And once we've hit 2 minutes, finish your sentence. Don't go on to another topic and we'll be good.
Perfect, like a high school presentation.
Pretty much.
Here we go.
All right, good evening. My name is Molly Soroy. I'm speaking on behalf of Lindsay Soroy and her children, who are my nieces. I reside in Pittston. Lindsay resides in Pittston with her husband and her 3 daughters. Her eldest goes to Gardner High School and her twins go to the middle school. We are both here tonight to not rescind the ACAA policy, but rather to tell you why it needs to go back to the policy committee so that amendments can be made. Parents' rights are fundamental, but it is this policy, it allows the superintendent to decide whether or not it involves parents or not. As a parent or as somebody who has children that I care about in the school system, if my children were to go through a sort of psychological discomfort, I would want to be the first to know. I certainly would never want a stranger, or in the case of a transgender student, what could be as many as 4 or 5 strangers guiding my child in a way that only a parent has the right to do.
1 minute.
You claim you choose to adopt this policy because you are afraid to get sued. The Damerscott School did not involve the parents regarding this same situation, and now they are actively getting sued. Parental rights are fundamental and period. Within the policy, it states you need more than a casual declaration. There needs to be an explanation on exactly what that means. The policy states that no medical diagnosis is required to claim to be transgender. If you want this issue to have validity, then there needs to be a medical diagnosis attached to this claim. Only certain admin and staff are privy to who has a different gender identity. So how are teachers and other students supposed to differentiate between which students have facility privileges
15
and
seconds.
which ones are just abusing the policy? These are just a few examples as to why this policy needs to be re-looked at. You claim you are doing this for the students, but I have a student petition that has over 200 signatures that are proving that you are not listening to all of
2
your
minutes.
students. Thank you.
Take those back.
Thank you. Let's see, Christina Hobbs.
I'm Christina Hobbs and I live in West Gardner. I'm here tonight to voice my concerns with the mixed-sex use of bathrooms and locker rooms. To be clear, students, regardless of sex or how they identify, deserve the same educational opportunities and resources and to be treated with compassion and respect. A compassionate response, however, does not deny the very real physical differences between sexes that require different treatment to protect privacy and physical and mental well-being of all the students. My concerns are many, as there are so many different ways this will impact people. I'm concerned with the mixed messages we are giving our children by implementing these policies. We'll tell them that they have the right to set boundaries and the right to bodily privacy, and then we make policies that tell them that they don't have control over who sees their bodies. With sexual assaults becoming more common, can be harmful, telling them to drop their guards. With no real guidelines on what makes someone able to use which bathroom except for what they feel or say at the moment, this will leave room for abuse. And we know that kids always press the limits of what they can do. We need to also consider those who have already been abused and what it means for someone of the opposite physical sex coming in the same restroom with them. It could potentially cause big triggers for them. There is also the issue of adults using the same facilities or be in charge of supervising children in these areas. This could open the door for many allegations. Finally, as a parent of a nonverbal child, this brings concerns for me. My child has autism and is nonverbal. The natural attraction to the opposite sex is still very much present.
15 seconds.
And this could potentially expose him to a situation that could leave him open for allegation or even abuse to himself. Thank you.
That's a.
Tom Harnett, please.
Good evening, Chair Veet, members of the school board and the policy committee. My name is Tom Harnett. I live on the Marston Road in Gardner with my wife, Lisa Copenhaver. We raised our 2 children, Joe and Eloise. They both went to MSAD11 schools, K through 12. I thank the board for being here tonight, listening to the public, and for having a civil conversation You mentioned about the polarization in our country. Talking about topics like this can be challenging. These are new areas for many people, but we need to be able to talk with one another rather than at one another. In my job, I spent a lot of time in schools. I've worked with students, teachers, and administrators, all focused on the same goal. Every student has the right to feel safe, valued, welcome, and respected in school without exception. Our schools can and must provide a quality education to all students, not just some, all.
1 minute.
This is both a moral and legal obligation, and I think everyone here shares that belief. But there are times when people in school, people everywhere feel uncomfortable about something that is new and different. However, this discomfort can never be the basis to discriminate against others in a way that denies people of their fundamental rights, including the right to an education. That's why the policy we are talking about tonight is so important. It makes certain that no student is denied the right to an education due to discrimination flowing from discomfort or misunderstanding. I believe that this is a thoughtful and well-crafted policy. It's been reviewed by your council numerous times, and I believe that it is one that is legally sound.
15
Policy
seconds.
protects rights and should remain in place. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Looks like Tara Campbell.
Hello, my name is Tara Campbell and I'm from West Gardner. I'm here tonight to speak out against the trans kids being able to use the bathroom of their choice without formally transitioning. I understand that your opinion may be that this is helping trans kids and safeguarding them from being bullied, but I don't feel that this is actually helping anyone. You are now transferring that risk to another group of kids. That can't be the answer. I think it's a fair statement when I say most kids are picked on for something when they're growing up. And they're learning to become an adult. This is a natural event as much as we don't like it. As parents, we need to teach our kids how to cope and heal and use it to become a stronger person. We should not be forcing others to bend and comply just because their feelings may be hurt. That can be a slippery slope. While I do appreciate that a couple of bathrooms will be redesigned to have floor to ceiling walls, I feel that this is not enough to protect our kids.
1 minute.
Cameras in communal areas may be the solution, or maybe a monitor that randomly walks in and out of each bathroom. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know what is legal in these situations, but maybe a signed permission slip is an idea. If parents are okay with children using a bathroom or a locker room with someone of the opposite sex, then they can allow it. Just as you would need a permission slip to see an R-rated movie. Maybe this is something that should be voted on at a town meeting instead of here. Allowing such a small group of people to make this big decision seems wrong. While I may not have the answer to this, I know in my heart that I need to speak out against it to protect my children as best I can.
15 seconds.
I feel that socializing is a big part of growing up, and I think that my kids benefit from this aspect of school. But as a parent, I don't like the direction the public schools are going, and am seriously considering homeschooling.
2 minutes.
Please stop this indoctrination at school. I hope you'll reconsider this policy. Thank you.
Sarah Manser.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Manzer and I'm a resident of Gardner, Maine. Last meeting, I spoke on behalf of my mother. This week, I decided to take the most relevant perspective of a student. Personally, if I used the bathroom at my school while a transgender female was in there, I would not feel threatened. I probably wouldn't even take notice. These students are people. I know they are not out to get me in the school bathroom. All they want is to comfortably use the bathroom of the gender they identify with. If something were to happen in a bathroom, I would tell a teacher, officer, or the principal. I would name that student specifically. I would never try to target an entire group of students. As a freshman in high school, I am mature enough to know that while it's possible someone could act in an inappropriate way in the bathroom, That does not mean their entire gender, race, or sexuality are to blame. That is an extremely volatile outlook to have on people. As my older brother could tell you, once you get to college, most of the bathrooms are co-ed. It does not create the issues that some people might assume it would. Students walk in, do what they need to do, and walk out.
1 minute.
If there was an incident with a student in a bathroom, that student would be punished. It's as simple as that. Being in the same bathroom with someone of another gender does not guarantee attack. An average person goes to the bathroom for one reason, to use the bathroom. In all, I don't believe that parents advocating against this policy want anything besides what is best for their kids. However, it is important to be aware of what is best for every kid. If there is a specific issue, that needs to be handled with separately. This policy grants transgender students the ability to attend school in comfort. Not allowing them this comfort over something they did not do is simply unfair. Retaining this policy is what is best for every student in the Gardner School District.
Thank you. Carrie Manser.
Good evening. I'm Carrie Manser. I've been a Gardner resident for 20 years. I'm a mother of 2 daughters who attend Gardner High School and a son who recently graduated. I've been volunteering in the schools for 13 years now, and I'm a local minister. I first want to express my deep gratitude for our school board members, our administrators, and our school staffs for all they do to make sure that our kids get a quality education and are safe in their schools. Despite those efforts, however, I do worry about my kids' safety at school all the time. The church where I work is on the Common, just up the hill from the police station. And every time I hear police cars or ambulances go by, my first thought is, oh God, I hope there has not been a school shooting in one of our schools. The fear is real because we've seen it happen in schools across our country. What I have never worried about is the safety of my daughters because they might be sharing the bathroom with transgender or non-binary students. I know that those who oppose the policy believe that they're fighting for the safety of their kids, and my heart goes out to that.
1 minute.
But in the process, our transgender and non-binary kids are being dehumanized by some and viewed as outside our community rather than a part of it. And that breaks my heart. I think we are better than that. One of the things that I love most about living in Gardner or in the Gardner area is that we are a politically diverse community. We've got Republicans and Democrats, independents and Greens and whatever else. And even as divided as our country is right now around politics and culture wars, we generally manage to live together in this community in friendship with each other, supporting our kids at sporting events and plays and band and choral concerts and everything else.
15 seconds.
And so it saddens me to see this divisiveness in our community that is arising over this policy. I don't think it needs to be this way. I think we can love all of our kids and care about the safety of all of our kids. And this policy in its current form is a way of saying that we see and value all of our kids.
2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Barb Saroy.
Thank you for actually having this meeting and being willing to talk about it some more. So I have grandkids in the district and I actually work at the junior high. So, and I can assure you that Sarah Sims and Hope St. Dennis put forth a phenomenal effort to encourage our kids to be the best that they can be. I see it all day. You know, I see it on the walls, I see it projected, and you know, thank you for doing that. And you know, they encourage them to be proud of the things that they can accomplish and proud of the person that they are. And I'm proud to be able to do that for them too. They're all positive messages. But everyone sitting in this room understands that junior high life is not the same as when we were kids. We're talking about the junior high. We're talking about kids aged 11 to about 15. And we're not talking about adults. Life has become much more complicated and even frightening for children these days. Many students in this young generation are faced with all kinds of things: food insecurity, fears for their safety, stress about peer relationships, worldviews, the media, which has stolen away their innocence, sexual pressures, depression, just to name a few. And our social workers are very busy. Our children and grandchildren have enough pressures and challenges to face without adding one more thing for them to be anxious about.
15 seconds.
You know, someone of the opposite sex in the bathroom. So I am asking that you think about it. And, you know, we should be able to come up with something that's good for everyone, all of our students.
2 minutes.
And yeah, so I have a whole more to say, but that's essentially, and I love all the kids. I don't really care how they identify.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Beth Brooker.
Hi, thank you. I am Beth Brooker. I live in Gardner. I am a parent of a freshman boy, and I am the school social worker at Gardner Area High School. I also am the staff advisor for the Gay Straight Diversity Alliance at the high school. I am going to speak from all of those roles as a community member, a parent, and a school staff member. The policy that we have in place currently is valid, appropriate, and what needs to be in place. I was here, and many of you were here in January when the school attorney came in and spoke of that, reminded us all of state and federal laws, and that our policy is in line with that. So if we want to look at just the legal standpoint, we have the backing of our attorneys. Now, if we want to look at what's in the best interest of the kids, all of the kids, it is to be seen and treated as individuals. Some students do feel safe and comfortable enough coming out in middle school and high school, and some do not. We don't know all of the students that are being affected by this policy. And when our students see us arguing over this and see children of the LGBT community being devalued in the community, that is going to make the students who are not out scared to come out. And that's going to put them at greater risk for depression, for substance use, for suicide. We need to protect our children over the comfort of people who don't fully understand what is going on. Thank you.
Thank you. So you have Dan Coots and Samantha Coots. So Dan first, and
I just signed both of them.
yeah, just thank you.
All right, my name is Samantha Coots. I reside in Randolph. My daughter goes to Gardner Middle School. So again, I spoke at the last meeting. I just want to say that I'd like to start by saying my heart breaks for any child with identity issues. It also breaks for my daughter and the majority of girls in the middle school who are feeling uncomfortable or unsafe with this policy. It's not just parents, it's the kids too. And it's a big majority of them. They've got a petition that says that. So the current policy allows any child at any time to use the bathroom or locker room at any time that they identify with. So just by saying that they're a girl today or a boy tomorrow, and it just needs to be clarified a little bit more. I feel like the policy desperately needs amendments. We've been told at a recent meeting with Becky Fleiss that the amendments can be made within the law.
1 minute.
So I don't think we're asking, what we're asking to vote on is unreasonable. I personally think there should be a medical diagnosis or some sort of documentation of identity issues with a counselor previous to approval of using the bathroom of the opposite sex. There should be something in the policy that protects teachers and administration to be able to question kids when these issues arise without fear of discrimination. I also agree that bathrooms and locker rooms changes can be made, which I understand this is in the works. But I hope that it doesn't create more isolated incidences.
15 seconds.
This policy is too open to abuse and needs revision. I pray you vote to make amendments to protect all the children in the Gardner school system.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kathleen Campbell.
It's just gonna be me, Jeff, I'm next on it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay. Jeff Campbell, I went to school in Gardner, live in Pittston. My kids go to school, went to school in Gardner, now my grandkids are going to the same school district. It was first brought to light to me that my granddaughter in the 7th grade was afraid to go to the bathroom. So she's like holding it all day. And she's been told to go to the nurse's room or something like that. That just seems really odd to me that we're going down that road where, you know, the 100, 150, 200 girls or kids are uncomfortable going to the bathroom to make an exception for a few others. Now, perhaps there's some alternatives, but I really, hearing everybody, I really wasn't gonna speak on the bathroom issue. You know, I really wanted to speak on the parental rights issue, because I've been trying to research this since I learned more about it. And there seems to be specific guidance in there where the school district doesn't have to discuss with the parents if a child is leaning transgendered or not. They're gonna go forward and lean towards changing their pronouns, addressing them by a different name and all that, and that's fine, but it needs to be addressed with the parents. You can't overlook parental rights in the situation. And I think in the AC, AAA, whatever it is, it kind of leans you to overlook that side of it. So I urge us to go back to the policy committee so you can look at these guidelines and make sure that the parents' rights are not omitted from the whole scenario. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy Bullock.
How's everybody doing? Jeremy Bullock, I live in Pittston. I'm smart enough to know, I'm not very smart, but I'm smart enough to know that this is way too dense a subject for me to unpack in 2 minutes. But I guess I'll just give a very basic observation that I've had, that when it comes to the bathroom policy, you have certain individuals saying that they don't feel comfortable using bathrooms or changing facilities with biological boys. And then you have another group saying that they don't feel comfortable using a bathroom or changing space with biological boys. And one is told to go use the bathroom that makes you feel comfortable, and the other is kind of told to deal with it. I think that there may be laws that are tying our hands here, and they might not necessarily be correct. I do think that the most obvious solution would be to have those situations where kids are suffering with gender dysphoria or some other uncomfortability using those certain spaces. I think the most obvious pragmatic decision would be to have that student use the staff bathroom or a single bathroom. And I don't think that it should be viewed as any more discriminatory than when a wheelchair bound person needs to use an off ramp because they can't use the stairs, just because that's the way it is. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's see. I got 2 residents' emails here.
We just received them.
Yeah. So
We don't need to read them.
no. Yeah. Okay.
No, and Charlie, I think you might want to set some sort of time frame.
Yeah. So we've finished out with all the MSAD11 residents that had sought to speak. I'm now going to move to people from other towns that had requested to speak. I have a Barbara Ardner Hirsch.
Hi, I'm Barbara Archer Hirsch. I live in Augusta and I am counsel for the Maine Human Rights Commission. I am here because the policy that you have complies with the law and I urge you to keep it in place. It is unlawful under the Human Rights Act to discriminate in access or in any way based on sex, sexual orientation, or gender identity. And that's been settled law in Maine for more than a decade. In 2014, our Supreme Court issued a decision in Doe versus RSU 26. And let me tell you what they said. This is just one of the things they said. But RSU 26's later decision to ban Susan, the plaintiff, from the girls' bathroom based not on a determination that there had been some change in her status, but on others' complaints about the school's well-considered decision constituted discrimination based on Susan's sexual orientation. That is the message that will be sent if this policy is repealed. Policy has been reviewed by the commission. We can tell you that it's in compliance. It also doesn't allow for willy-nilly access for anyone to the bathroom of their choice. It specifically requires that the school plan and that there be an assessment based on the individual student's needs. And that's what the Doe versus RSU 26 case said was required as well. So the policy that you have is exactly what our Supreme Court envisioned.
15 seconds.
I have much, much more to say. I'm going to stick around. So if anyone has legal questions, I know your learned counsel is here, but I'm going to stay too. I just want to leave you with a little thought exercise.
2 minutes.
Because, sorry.
No, 2 minutes.
Okay.
Thank
You
you.
will have to come up with your own thought exercise. But mine's really good if you want to try it later.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Mike Soboleski.
Thank you very much. My name is Mike Soboleski. I'm a member of the state legislature. I'm here to ensure, and I'm a graduate of Gardner High School. I'm here to ensure that the school board understands that the legislature created the school board and there are laws which you are required to follow and you're required to act by. Maine School Management Association, Maine Superintendent School Association, nor the Maine School Board Association dictates policy. They are lobbyist organizations and your attorneys, Drummond Woodson, do not set state policy. I'd like to remind everyone that under Title 20, Chapter 201, Section 1001, the duties of the school board are to establish policies, procedures to address bullying, harassment, and sexual harassment as set forth in Section 6554. 6554 says, all students have the right to attend public schools that are safe, secure, and a peaceful environment. That's what state law says. A peaceful environment for everybody. That means that if you force a young lady to be in a bathroom or in a shower or in a locker room with a male and she's uncomfortable, this school board is bullying that student and you are in violation of state law. So I think very close and very carefully about what you're putting in for a policy. The next step will be going to the town to ensure there are ordinances in place for the recall of anybody on the school board who bullies a student. Thank you.
Yeah. Well.
Thank you. Katrina Smith.
Thank you. Good evening. I am State Representative Katrina Smith, and I do have constituents that do attend RSU 11. I'm here not to speak against any students, but to speak for students who deserve to be heard. I think when we hear discrimination, we are only looking at it from one side. We need to look at it from the side of the people who also feel discriminated against, that they cannot peacefully, as Representative Sobolewski said, use a bathroom of their choice. I also must call into the standing of this decision that school boards are basing these policies on. The Doe versus RSU 26 is absolutely 100% not settled law. The Maine Human Rights Act is settled act that does say certain things, but in Doe, the Maine Supreme Judicial Court ruled when they vacated the lower court's ruling, said, we emphasize that in this case, the school had a program carefully developed over several years and supported by an educational plan designed to sensitively address Susan's gender issues.
1 minute.
The determination that discrimination is demonstrated in this case rests heavily on Susan's gender identity and gender dysphoria diagnosis. We do not suggest that any person could demand access to any school facility or program based solely on a self-declaration of gender identity or confusion without the plans developed in cooperation with the school. Our opinion must not be read to require schools to permit students casual access to any bathroom of their choice. And I would call on you to absolutely prove that any child that goes into the bathroom that is not the biological sex that is on that bathroom door must prove a gender dysphoria diagnosis.
15 seconds.
And must also prove that that they have worked with the school. We cannot have this be casual. We must listen to these girls. They have as much right as anyone, and we can't just throw them out.
2
Women
minutes.
have come too far. Thank you.
Let's see, so I just want to be mindful of time so that we do have time to discuss this as a committee. We'll take a few more comments. Looks like I have is it a Christy Letts?
Good evening. My name is Katie Lutz. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the Associate Director of an organization called Out Maine. We're an LGBTQ+ youth serving organization, and we serve students across the state. We also work with schools and school boards. I want to say thank you so much for being in this position and doing this service for your community, for your town, for your educators, and for your students. It's invaluable that you are in these positions and doing this work, and it is incredibly difficult. As a previous educator myself, I've made important observations in the last 15 years of being in the classroom. Young people are much more likely to excel in those spaces, engage in their learning, and ask thought-provoking questions when they feel safe. This is a policy that allows students to feel safe. This is a policy that allows educators to feel safe by intervening when they hear things in classrooms or in the hallway, or maybe in the bathroom that sound unsafe.
1 minute.
It can be confronting when we interact with people who are different from us. I know I look different from most people. I gotta tell you, sometimes when I walk into a girls' or female bathroom, I don't feel unsafe. I feel unsafe because I look like I might not belong there. But being different doesn't even mean to equal unsafe. Being different can just simply be different. We work hard when we meet other people to find things in common with them, and it can be difficult to do so when we don't understand. We don't have to understand another person to treat them with respect. Public education is for all students. Working to meet students where they are to find the best way to support them in their education is of the utmost importance. This is a policy that allows folks to do that. Thank you.
Yeah.
You decide versus just cutting it off.
Yeah, so I think I kind of like the idea of we're gonna go for 5 more minutes with public commentary, or 6 more minutes. We'll get see how far we can get. And I do want to get to our committee work here. So, and forgive me, yes, if I do mispronounce names. I know I've stumbled a couple times tonight, so I appreciate everybody's flexibility. I think I have Isa Oberly. No, and that's okay. Yeah, if you want to decline now, that's okay.
Mhm.
Charlotte Warren.
Good evening, Chair Veet and members of the school committee. My name is Charlotte Warren. I'm a social worker, I'm an educator, I'm a policy consultant, and I'm a Gardner Tiger from 1988. I want to thank you for your service. This isn't easy. And I want to thank you for what you're doing. I also want to thank you for having this policy. This policy is based on state law. And when you have a policy like this, you're not only protecting all of the students, but you're protecting the school and you're protecting the taxpayers. And that's really important. I want to ask you to not repeal having a policy that protects everything you do in the school to make sure that you're aligned with state law. It allows people to not be guessing all the time. Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the wrong thing? Am I following the law? That's why we have policies. And secondly, I just want to say to all the young people, thank you. I want to say to all the young people, there are so many of us in the larger community. We love you. And we think you are the best thing we ever saw. And I think it's really important that you hear that. I was a queer kid in 1988. It was a different time. It wasn't fun. Look at how much we've changed. Right? Look at how our communities have changed. 35 years ago, we looked at me very differently. I have to tell you. Let's be brave. Let's lead with love. Let's not be so scared of things we don't understand. Because that's what I went through as a student. So again, to the young people, we love you. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine Caulfield. Yeah, I think this will be it.
Good evening. I came here as an observer, I guess. I don't live here, but I was a teacher for 24 years. I'm a parent of 2 daughters. I'm a grandparent of 4. I'm a veteran. I'm also transgender. So that some of the things I'm hearing here tonight are concerning for me because, as the previous speaker just said, there's been a long time when I couldn't come out. I grew up in the 60s and 70s. And it was dangerous for me to be who I was. And the consequence of that was a life that really wasn't mine. No matter what I did, I could never quite live up to the expectations of what society said I ought to be. And I couldn't just be me. And I understand that people are afraid of things they don't understand. But as a teacher, what I used to teach my students was there are enormous amounts of differences and it's complicated. But to walk away from that, to walk away and say, I'm going to give in to my fears and not educate myself and learn about the world as it is, not as I wish it might be, is really selling ourselves short and also our community short. This isn't easy stuff. Believe me, when I was working and I had kids come up to me and say, you know, I don't know where I am, the first question I always said, have you talked to your folks? Because that's where it starts. And there are people here asserting that parental rights are absolute. And I will tell you, there were times that kids told me things that there was no way I was going to talk to their parents about this.
15 seconds.
We can't assume that all parents have their kids' best interests at heart, even though we do. Those policies are in place for a reason. I support this policy, and I look forward to you working through this, and best of luck.
Thank you. We're now going to end the public comment section of the meeting and move on to our committee discussion and consultation with committee members, board members, and our attorney. thank you for being here.
You want me to go there?
Actually, I thought that worked well last time,
Okay.
if that's okay, yeah.
It's gonna leave it so we can hear her.
Okay, yeah, actually, we'll, take a moment.
2 minutes and whoever needs to leave.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming tonight.
I can throw my phone.
I can take your bag back here, Melissa. Perfect. There's chairs now if you all want to come in and fill in.
Yeah, that works. Okay.
All right, yeah, we've transitioned sufficiently. Yeah, appreciate everybody kind of focusing now. I'd like to hear from our attorney, if you could introduce yourself.
So my name is Melissa Huey and I am from the law firm of Drummond Whitson. I know that before you dealt with my partner Kathleen Wade. She's in Arizona doing some training. So she asked that I do my best Kathleen Wade imitation here tonight, and I'm going to try to do that. I have sort of figured out from talking a little bit with the superintendent and listening to what's been going on tonight, that there are a couple of issues that you probably want me to address. One being this issue of whether the Doe versus RSU 26 case is settled law. Another, I think, although, and I think it's been touched on too, is what are the legal consequences of not having a policy as you have proposed. And I think there's also been some question about whether you need a policy or whether it can be more on an ad hoc basis. Those are some of the things that I understand that you probably want to hear from, but I'm here as a resource, so you should feel free to jump in, ask me questions or whatever. Before I dive in, I do want to say that some of the things I've heard here tonight, every student has the right to feel safe, welcome, and comfortable in school. We see the value of all of our kids. It's important to be aware of what is best for everyone. Those are things that I know that are important to all of you. And I want to be clear here that that's your job, not mine. My job is only to tell you as best I can what the law is. I will tell you, not to brag, or maybe this isn't even slightly bragging, but I've been practicing school law for 35 years, so I have some knowledge of the law. I also was represented RSU 26 in the Doe versus RSU 26 case. So I have, and Barbara Archer-Hurst was on the other side of that. So I have a pretty good knowledge of that case, of how it played out, and of some of the thinking of some of the judges there. So I hope to be a resource, but I want to be clear that I'm not telling you what to do, because that's why you guys get paid the big bucks.
Thanks for recognizing that.
So just briefly on the settled law issue. So we all know that there are two different types of law. There's federal law and there's state law. And in the federal side, you have the trial courts, the district courts, and then you have the circuit courts of appeal. And then finally you have the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has not spoken on this issue. So as a technical matter, there is no settled federal law about this. On the other hand, there have been a number of circuit courts that have spoken on the issue. I think about 5 or 6, and the weight of authority says that there is a right of transgender students to use facilities, that's consistent with their gender identity. But that's not settled. On the other hand, we also have state law, and state law is separate from federal law. State law includes the Maine Human Rights Commission, the Maine Human Rights Act. It includes Title 20A, as we've heard here before. It includes a lot of other things. And in the state system, we have the superior trial courts, just as we do in the federal system. And then we have the Supreme Judicial Court. The Supreme Judicial Court has spoken in the Doe versus RSU 26 case. So I think that at least as we stand here today, that is settled law. The court decided that case. The court says that public schools are obliged to provide students who have a genuine, and we're not talking about, as was said before, something that's casual, but this has to be genuine gender identity. But people with a genuine gender identity have the right to use the facilities that are consistent with the gender that they identify with. That's what the Supreme Court has said. That's the law in Maine. And I remember when I first lost that case, and I'm always able to spin anything positively, but I actually meant this. And what I said was, this is a really good thing for schools because now we know. We don't have to wonder. The court has told us what we have to do, and that's what it did. So that's number one, settled law. I believe it is pretty clearly settled law. Now, there are ways that you can parse through the language of the decision and say, well, maybe there are different ways to look at this court. Maybe you should carve out exceptions and things like that. And it's true that that could happen. But I will tell you that I think it's very unlikely. Having been there with the judges, having heard the argument, having talked to the judges afterwards, this is a case that the Maine judiciary is proud of, and they're going to stick behind it. And it is true that many of the judges that were actually sat on this case have now retired, but the judges that have replaced them are at least as liberal as they were. So I think that most people, most lawyers will tell you that this decision will stand. This decision will stand because it's Maine, because the judges believed in it. And it's also important for you to know that although Maine was out in front on this issue a decade ago, most of the states in the country are now have essentially the same law. So we're not an outlier. This is pretty much the law. So that's number one. Number two is, what happens if you decide that this isn't the way you want to go? I think the path there is pretty clear. I think that if you deny a trans student with with genuine feelings the ability to use facilities that are consistent with their gender identity, you will be sued. I think that the Human Rights Commission has made it very clear in many districts around the state that I have represented that they will sua sponte, meaning they don't have to have the actual student bring the complaint. They will go and bring the complaint themselves. If you bring the complaint, given what the Doe versus RSU 26 case said, it's likely that you'll lose. At least at the Superior Court, there is no Superior Court judge that would say, I don't think what the Supreme Court said makes any sense. They don't like to be flipped, and they're going to follow what they're supposed to follow. Is there a chance that if it went up again, the Supreme Court would change its mind? Absolutely. There's always a chance. We've seen that nationally. We've seen it at the Maine level, but it's a very slim chance. And it's also something that takes a long time. And what that means is that if you're in a lawsuit, you're in a lawsuit for a long time. And what I can tell you, having represented schools for a long time, that's a world of hurt. That means your administrators, students, teachers are involved in litigation. That means you're in the newspaper all the time. You're focusing on the lawsuit instead of teaching and learning. It's something that you probably don't want to do. So I think ultimately, knowing what the law is at least something that you should all really consider. Last thing I said I'd talk about, I'm trying to do it in 2 minutes, maybe it was a little more, but not too much, is do you need a policy? And the answer to that is no. State statute requires certain policies like bullying and concussions and I don't know, a whole bunch of other things. It does not require a transgender, gender expansive policy. That said, we recommend very strongly to all of our district clients that they adopt a policy. And there are really a couple of reasons for that. The most important reason is that the policy provides guidance. It provides guidance to your staff. It provides guidance to the community. It provides guidance to students. And knowing how you're going to do this, knowing what the process is very important. It also sends a message to your community that you want to see this done right. You want it, you've considered it, and you have, you sort of have everybody's back. So I think that having that policy is really important for your school environment. The second thing, and this isn't quite as important, but it is true that if you ultimately end up in a lawsuit, the first thing the Human Rights Commission is going to say is, where's your policy? If you don't have a policy and you get to the end of the road, the last thing they're going to say is, now you have to adopt a policy. And the only thing I can say there is that in my experience, people would rather have their own policy than have a policy that somebody else imposes on them. So this gives you more sort of choice and more leadership in the matter if you actually do have a policy. So that's all I have to say as an introduction, but I'm happy to answer anybody's questions.
Thank you so much, for your time. And just to kind of review with everybody, now's the time for the policy committee and the board members to check in with Attorney Huey.
You can call me Kathleen if you want.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So Joanne had a question.
Real quickly. I'm reading through the policy and it seems very clear that there needs to be a plan in place where someone in the school district, counselors or whatever, have made a determination that this student does need to have access to a bathroom with the gender that they identify with. I think in hearing a lot of the parents here, they don't understand what that means. Can you explain that a little bit more clearly?
So I think that the purpose behind those provisions in the policy are to make it clear that people don't willy-nilly decide today I'm going to use the girls' room, the next day I'm going to use the boys' room, et cetera, et cetera. This is a team effort, and we work on it to make sure that there is genuine gender identity issues. We make sure that that everybody is comfortable with the way things are going. And it's like, I guess it's sort of overseen.
That is accurate. So I know Sarah's here, for example, from the middle school, but that is the way it works. When we have a student who comes forward, a family who comes forward, meeting is organized, right? Or multiple meetings that includes social worker, teachers, administrators, staff, and parents. And the plan is developed based on usually multiple meetings.
think Jeff was next, and then I got a question.
Jeff.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. Under this is kind of hypothetical, more, under the supremacy clause, if this goes to the Supreme Court of the United States, Maine law would have to follow that, wouldn't it?
It's not, it's a little more nuanced than that. If this were to go to the Supreme Court on say, on a constitutional issue of equal protection, or maybe a due
Well, just
process
say this policy
privacy
itself
issue,
made it
or
all the way to
something
the
like
Supreme
this.
Court.
Well, it depends. And so if the claim is this violates the equal protection clause, or this violates the some students' due process rights, or something like that, then it would go to the Supreme Court. But the Supreme Court doesn't weigh in on the Maine Human Rights Act.
No, but could a ruling from that Supreme Court overturn Maine law?
A ruling from the Supreme Court that says, hypothetically, that allowing a student to use a bathroom violates somebody's constitutional rights would essentially overturn the Maine Human Rights Act decision.
My second question is another hypothetical. You're warning us about getting sued if we don't have a policy that allows transgender people to use the bathrooms under this policy. What about the other students? When does the school itself become, so to speak, in the gun sights of a lawsuit from a student that's being harmed by this policy? Are we at risk by not protecting students that are truly uncomfortable, feel threatened and endangered, and they have mental, emotional issues, they do badly in school, and we get sued by their parents? They would have standing, right?
So there's a couple of different issues there. The first is, if a student is struggling and they're not doing well in school, that's something that your administration, your social workers, your teachers are going to be dealing with. So I want to put that aside. Your other question is, could somebody who feels uncomfortable with this policy bring a claim? And the answer to that is that people can bring claims for anything, basically. And I don't say that to diss lawyers, but it is true that there are a lot of claims that can be brought. What I can say is that claims like that would be based on a privacy right, and that most of those cases around the country have.
And I just wanted to clarify, if there was actual harm, that someone was injured in some way demonstrably, that's different than just feeling uneasy just because someone different is in the bathroom. You have to have an injured party, correct?
So, and an injured party, that really is an issue of conduct. And it doesn't matter whether it's a trans kid or a boy or a girl or anybody can engage in misconduct, and the school will deal with it. So that I don't think it really has anything to do with this particular issue.
Thank you, Melissa. Chris,
I got probably 3 questions. I'll try to make them quick. You're right. The US is all over the place. The 11th Circuit Court did their thing, then a couple others. So we're left with what the Maine Supreme Court has said in this case. I know 6501 was brought up in the court case and by a member of the public that says schools have to have bathrooms separated by sex, but the court interpreted that as that's in design and feature, but not how it's used. Am I correct with, that's what the judges said?
Yeah, and I can say the people who look at 6501, I mean, they're preaching to the choir with me, because that was my case.
Yeah, right.
I was like, look at this law, how can I lose? And the Supreme Court said, you can't. This is a sanitation statute, and the way we sort of harmonize them is to say that it doesn't matter. And that's what the court said.
I wanted to make that clear because that question was brought to us. Number 2, I actually highlighted and starred the same section one of the legislators said about the school. It said in here that Susan had a diagnosis of gender dysphoria in grade 5. And then it also said, we do not suggest any person could deem access. They had to have cooperation with the school. They had a 504 plan. Would it be, our policy kind of says a transgender student should contact the building administrator. And then in another section, it says if the student has an IEP or a 504 plan, they can be considered transgender. I think the biggest concern amongst the public is not necessarily the transgender student themselves, but the casual person saying, I'm gonna be a boy next week and doesn't have a plan with the school. Could we tighten this policy up to say they shall contact the building administrator, or they shall have a 504 plan? Or is it within our legal right to request a medical diagnosis, since this case was so heavily interpreted based on that diagnosis? So that's a lot of questions to
Yeah,
answer.
I was gonna object to the form of your question out loud, but I decided no one would sustain my objection, so let me try answering it. The first thing is when we look at the language in Doe, people sometimes people who want to distinguish that case focus on the gender dysphoria language. I think it's important to look at the language before that says Susan's gender identity. And it happened to be that she had a gender dysphoria diagnosis, but the importance to the decision, as I think most people who have read this and thought about it, is the gender identity. It's a genuine gender identity that we're talking about. So that's number one. Number two, if I remember correctly, is your policy suggests that students says they should, or I don't know what it is. If you want to know whether you can change it, shall. So I wasn't there when your particular policy was discussed, but I will tell you that when we in our law firm were thinking about the policy, we chose not to use the word shall, not because we're saying that students who want to use a different restroom don't need a plan. But what we're saying is we're not trying to require trans kids to out themselves. So we're not saying if you're gender expansive, or transgender, that you have to contact somebody. And that's the point of the should rather than shall language. It doesn't draw the distinction in terms of the having a plan. It just says we're not telling you have to have a plan.
Doesn't that open up the casual encounter that was intended not to take place?
So I think that you can, if you want to tighten that language, I think it could be tightened.
Thank you. You answered my question.
Jim.
All of them?
Challenge a little bit on your shall and should thought about worried about being outed, which frankly, I am very supportive within my own family. I have a gay daughter, but if you're going to say, if they just walk into the restroom as a transgender person, they have by de facto out themselves. It isn't a matter whether we put shall or should in that policy. They have outed themselves, which is fine. I welcome that. Every child or person should feel comfortable being outed. And I don't like the term outed as such, but to be comfortable in themselves. So I have a problem with you're worried about shall and should. My best friend was a lawyer and he drove me nuts. So
People say that about me all the time, so I'm good with it.
I asked for a little lease one time. You like a 2-page? He gave me 14. So, but anyway, that's my concern.
No, I think that to the extent there's a concern that the policy doesn't make it clear that casual behavior doesn't count, the language can be tightened up. I think that what you're trying to do here by this policy is make sure that everybody understands what the rules are, but also that everybody feels welcome and supported. And shall words make people feel less welcome and supported than should words. But you can certainly work with that language.
Just a point of policy here. So looks like page 2, section C, addressing the needs of transgender and expansive students. This involves more than a casual declaration of gender identity or expression, but it does not require a medical diagnosis. So that's the
Yeah, I
phrasing.
think that's pretty consistent with what the law, yeah.
In the following sentence, if a student and their parent want the school to recognize the student's identity as transgender or gender expansive, the following procedure will be used. At that point, you contact the building administrator. If a student does not want to do that, then the school is not obligated to start into this plan at all. If they'd be like, I am not comfortable, then they remain keeping their own counsel, and that's fine. And if somebody wants to be recognized by the school as, you know, the gender that they feel appropriate in, that is when somebody needs to come and talk to the administration. So I feel like we have it very extensively covered just here.
I agree with you, Jack. But I'm just saying that by the mere fact that you are going to use the restroom, and I encourage any transgender student to use what they feel comfortable with, but be realistic, be true to yourself. And if they're going to do it, and that's fine, have a conversation with building administrator ahead of time. Let them know that they're making some
What the policy
pushback.
states that we should do.
What's that?
That is exactly what the policy states that we do.
Yes, I agree with you.
Yeah, and if I can just jump in, that certainly is what the policy is intended to say. And if it's not clear enough to folks, I think that it could be clarified. But the point is, if you choose to take advantage of these things, then you need to communicate and get a plan.
Can we have a teacher or a principal?
We're gonna hold public comment now. I'm gonna have Becky, you had a question?
So I have a couple of thoughts here.
Thoughts, yeah.
Thoughts, questions, whatever. The first one is a 504. So we have requirements legally if it's a 504. And that would mean that if we were to address it that way, it would mean that we were suggesting that being a trans student is a disability, and that is not true. So that would not work. Yes?
Yes.
That would not work.
That absolutely cannot
Excuse
be.
me, I'm going to just.
Jeff, I'm gonna hang on one second.
Hang on.
Clarification.
Becky's got the floor. Jeff, right now, Becky's got the floor, please.
But I want-
Thank you. I see you.
Secondarily, there's no method in place. These students they're minors. They have a right to privacy. And we have never in this district, and I mean never, said that parents don't have all the rights when it comes to your kids. If your kids aren't talking to you, we can't control that. If they're not trusting their parents with their innermost thoughts and terrible feelings as we might see them, the school cannot be held responsible for that. So having said that, there's no way also for us to send out a missive to everyone in the school that says Becky is trans, so she's gonna be in the bathroom and look out for that. There's no way, because students have a right to privacy. They're minors. So when we hear the concern for, can't a teacher know? My guess is that the people that know need to know. That's my guess. Can you help me with that?
Well, and I think that actually speaks also to why you have a policy. So a policy tells you, this is how we're gonna deal with things. And we're not gonna talk about individuals, but we're gonna talk about how we deal with this. Now, everybody's on notice. And if we're following the policy, which you will assume is gonna be done, then there's been a plan, there is a genuinely held feeling, et cetera, et cetera.
Jeff, yeah, thanks.
Yes, thank you. I should have called the point of order. All I wanted to do was clarify for the listening public and the audience here what a 504 was. You might know what that means. We
Oh,
ought
I'm
we ought to
happy to do
explain.
that. So a 504 plan is special education, that you have a special need. You maybe are in a wheelchair, or maybe
You may have some health needs, but you're not special education.
correct. Yes, you have some,
That's an
you have, yes, you have some different needs, and this does not qualify as that. That's all I was trying to say. There's a 504 and an IEP.
Thank you. Matt?
A couple of points. I just want to confirm with the foot stomp, even though we've mentioned it 3 or 4 different times, that if a student who identifies as transgendered, there is a deliberate process for them to use the bathroom they identify with. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, so clear as mud. So the argument that's been happening is that my son is in the 7th grade and all of a sudden he drives and just gets off the bus tomorrow and says, I'm gonna go use the girls' room today. He can't do that.
Okay.
Okay,
I mean.
because there's a
you can speak to it
misconception,
better,
I'm
but that's what
imagining.
the policy would not permit that
Okay,
at
but there's a
all.
misconception that can happen. So I just wanted to clarify, according to the policy, it can happen. And then the second thing that no one has addressed is that the accommodations that are in place already at the school, not just for the transgendered students, but for the students who may feel uncomfortable, or, a female student going into the girls' bathroom. There's nothing that says we are forcing them, and I'm using that word because other people used it tonight, to go into that specific bathroom. Pretty sure there's more than one bathroom in the middle school. And I know that they have been given the availability to go to a different bathroom. And I know it's divided up into wings and stuff like that, and the teams or whatever that I should know, Bigelow, I think it's my son's team. It's generally cordoned off into one section of the school. But if a 7th grade student or an 8th grade student is uncomfortable that they might run into the transgender individual, they can go to a different bathroom. They can go to the nurse's bathroom. No one has ever brought that up. So we're doing the floor to ceiling type of thing. So saying that we as the school board with this policy are forcing people to do something, I think is a misstatement.
So I think the superintendent should probably speak to that. I will say that in most districts, if people are uncomfortable using one facility, there's always another facility that they can use. I think this district is thinking even farther about privacy issues in the floor to ceiling things, and there are a whole bunch of other things that people are trying to work on to make people feel comfortable, because we want everybody to be comfortable. But you're right. I mean, you tell me.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And we've talked about it here. We've talked about it in previous meetings, that any student who is uncomfortable using any of the bathrooms can go to the administration and they can freely use any single bathroom. We have one in the office, we have the nurse's office, so they're certainly available for anyone.
And I just wanted to verify that because people are saying forcing and bullying, which I think is a crock. So.
But we are looking at that as the board also recently decided that they were going to invest in that floor to ceiling in 4 bathrooms. They're not able to do it due to the cost in every bathroom, but they are looking at doing it in 4 bathrooms as a starting point. I had a follow-up question.
Yes.
That I heard from a few parents, the concern about whether to involve parents or not in the conversation. And I know that when I've attended some trainings on this and on this policy, have really talked about the importance of making sure that we include parents as much as possible, but there may be circumstances if a student does not wish to have their parents involved, that we have to honor their wish. Can you speak to that a little bit?
This is probably the most difficult and most unsettled area of law. And it really, the rights of parents are very important. I would start with what I believe to be an absolute fact, which is all school personnel wants to involve parents. There is never a time when anyone wants to encourage a kid to keep a secret from the parent. So what we're talking about here generally is not whether you're gonna keep a parent out, but it's the timing. Is it 2 seconds after you hear it? Is it, can we facilitate a conversation? How are we going to get this communication going? That's, I think, what the policy looks at. And I know that that's what all of your folks want to do, because everybody wants to work with parents as a team. And that works best.
Yeah, and during our trainings, sorry, I didn't mean to have my back to you. During administrative team trainings, that is the conversation. You know, we want parents involved. We want to have conversations with students to have them understand. It's maybe really scary to share this information with their parents. But how do we bring your parents into the conversation? We're here to support you to do that. So that is absolutely at the forefront.
And Jeff.
One more statement. We keep talking about the law protecting a child, but the law is only protecting one child, one group of children. The signatures of what, 150 students, girls in one school? Obviously, there's a problem with their feeling protected because they're being bullied to go use a room. If they're uncomfortable, if a girl is uncomfortable in a girl's room, she has to go to another room. Well, you're discriminating by forcing her to go there because she has to, because of the way she feels, she can't use her own sex, her own bathroom that's assigned to her sex. So what about them? Are we leaving them behind? Are we not, we only care about the children that have some type of, emotional, sexual issue that they have to go to a bathroom?
I'm not reading the law.
We gotta.
Well, I'm not talking about the law itself. It's just, it's like we're neglecting a huge group of people that are being affected with this policy.
I hear you talking about people that are being, may feel discriminated against by implementing this policy.
Yeah, well, and again, there's nothing in this policy says a high school senior can't walk into a 7th grade girl's locker room.
So,
and change his clothes.
As
As long as he says a policy in place that he feels this way. I mean, that's pretty radical. This is, nothing so about this.
I want to be mindful, point of order, and I appreciate you listening to me earlier, I really do. That a senior in the middle school would be rare, that's harder to imagine. But I want to, let's see, I want to hear from Jack, if that's okay, and then
Absolutely.
Becky, and then Matt.
Actually, I need a second. Can you put me second?
Oh, yeah, actually.
Okay. Jeff, I hate to disagree, but I disagree a little bit. And that is, if somebody is harmed, if someone goes into the girl's bathroom, if a male goes into the girl's bathroom and assaults that girl, there will be a burden of proof. That's how it works. That's how the law works. I don't get to just say, Jeff hurt my feelings. Jeff made me feel uncomfortable. If something happens to a child, we are all over it. The door swings both ways. It does. And please allow me to finish with that thought and to think for 1 second that just because a boy is in the girl's bathroom, that he is a predator or she is a predator or it is a predator.
You're putting words in my mouth.
Well, but again, the intimation is there that he's in there, so therefore he doesn't belong.
He doesn't.
In your opinion. And
It
unfortunately.
defies logic, biology.
I understand that your feelings are what they are. I understand that. But unfortunately, the law doesn't see it the way that you see it. And I'm sorry that that's the way it is.
We're gonna see a reverse lawsuit.
Okay.
Sooner or later.
Well, and if that's the case, we need to be ready, and then we're gonna need this policy.
Yep.
Because the door swings both ways.
Okay, I'm done. I'm sorry.
Jack, yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. How many parents do you think in the 1960s would have signed a petition saying how very uncomfortable they were with Ruby Bridges going to their child's school and how their students were being harmed. How many parents do you think in the 60s would have signed that? And how many parents alive today would think about their position at that moment and think, wow, I really didn't know as much as I thought I did in that moment? Like what by challenging the rights of these students as needing a little bit of special protection, you are undermining. You're undermining the idea that all of us are safe, that all of us are the same. And I don't think there's any basis for us to be continuing to challenge this. We're making an issue out of something that should not be.
Thank you. Matt. I had one comment, which is now two, thanks to Jack. First of all, assuming that 150 individuals who signed a petition understand the policy ad nauseum, whereas even, I'm a fairly educated guy and I'm asking questions to our lawyer to clarify the salient details of it. And even besides the fact if they do or haven't read the policy, that they are uncomfortable. That's assuming that all 150 individuals who signed this are truly uncomfortable, or if it was peer pressure from their buddies, or it was just kind of put in front of them and they just signed it, whatever, without a thorough hashing out of what they were actually signing. So everyone keeps bringing up the petition. That's all well and good. But again, we can't assume that we can have a clue what those people were thinking when they signed it. And then the other thing I'll bring up is don't ask, don't tell. Good order and discipline. I joined the Army in 1993. I got out in 2020. So I was there when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was enacted. And I was at Fort Carson, Colorado, when I sat through all the briefings of how now there could be gays in the military, because of course they were never there before. But we had to sit through all the different things because of the good order and discipline. And that's not even getting into what Truman did in the 1950s when he integrated the military and it didn't fall apart. So I mean, I'm being a little flippant with the seriousness of this, but what I'm saying is, change comes at a snail's pace, and we're trying to catch up right now. So assuming that we know what's going on in everyone's different heads, we're doing the best we can. You are accommodating the people who identify the different gender with this policy so they can be comfortable to use whatever bathroom they identify with. And then we set up the accommodations for all the people, maybe those 150 individuals who signed a petition that says, I'm not comfortable going in the bathroom with that type of person. Well, there's 7 or 8 others in the school to go to. So there is no perfect solution for anything, but we're doing the best we can. And it's not a cop out or whatever else, because, I'm sitting up here and I'm willing to face the fire from anybody else. But, if you're attacking a kid over this, that's bullying. I'm just going to hash back on that because I'm still mad about the accusation. So, talk to the adults, the school board members. Don't attack the child, either face to face, on the phone, or social media, which is the worst at this point. So let's get off my soapbox.
Joanne.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that the bathroom is not a place to be loitering around and gossiping or sniping at other people or making comments about what they look like. The bathroom is to go in, do what you need to do, wash your hands, and then get back to class. Students that are really concerned should just follow the rules. As a teacher, I taught for 25 years. And my biggest problem was having kids go off to the bathroom and they'd be gone for 5 or 10 minutes. And at that point in time, when they come back, it's like, okay, you're misusing the privilege of going to the bathroom. 2 minutes, go down, do your business, come back. The problem happens when kids loiter in the bathrooms, they're using it as their lunchroom, or they're using it as their social hub. And so if we just really got down to the basics, which is if you need to go to the bathroom, and then come right back. Go to the lunchroom, go to your specials, go back to your classroom or your activity. And then we don't have this much of a problem. The problem is if you've got groups of kids clotting around waiting for trouble to happen. And there are plenty of places where trouble can happen in schools, middle school through high school, you know, those dark hallways, in the stairwells, wherever. If you go to the bathroom, come back. And that should cut down on everything. And if there's an actual bullying or harassment situation, we have procedures in place. If you go down through the list under the J's, there's a bullying report form. And if you state who was the bully, how you were hurt, or if somebody else is reporting, because I'm sure teachers and administrators we have to report if we see it. We can't ignore it, okay? There's a bullying form in place. This is just to say that if a child goes into the bathroom at the gender that they identify with, they're not going to be bullied. They're not going to be harassed. That's it. That's the whole policy.
Thank you, Joanne. And Megan, I want to be mindful, we've gone past the allotted time we had for this. I do want to make sure everybody is heard, but I just also want to be mindful of.
Sure.
of time.
Yeah, no, I just was thinking when Joanne was talking about using the bathroom, that I fully agree that students should just go to the bathroom and then go back to class. But I also know that we've had a lot of problems in the bathrooms this year. So bathrooms are like right at the top of our list this year. We're talking about the bathrooms a lot. And so I'm behind this policy. I think it's really helpful because there are places in this country that don't have policies and things can happen in those bathrooms that are really scary. I think the floor to ceiling bathroom idea is okay. I personally feels a little claustrophobic to me. And I think that it also poses some risk having that tiny little compartment that more than one student could get in for whatever reason. That freaks me out. I don't know, but I think if that was something that the community felt comfortable, like if that helped people feel more comfortable, great, that's wonderful. But I just wanted to say, yes, students should just be going to the bathroom and coming back. And without a policy like this, we are open to some really scarier things happening. And I want to avoid that. Thanks, sorry.
No, thank you.
I just want to get back to the policy real quick and the policy committee.
Yes.
If the policy committee could look at some of the language to see if there's improvements that can be made. When I talked about Jack brought up, if a student wants to be recognized, they will follow this procedure, but then the next sentence it says they should contact building administrators. And then the next section that says, if requested or deemed necessary by administration to address school-related issues. So that's kind of reactive. So if you don't do one where you contact guidance or the building administrator, section 2 says, if you need to address school-related issues. So that's inferring that nobody knew about the situation. That helps both sides, actually, if you're on a side. So it protects the transgender student because now the building administration knows, hey, I need to be a lookout. There might be some bullying. I might want to pay more attention to that. But then on the other side, it also lets building administration know before an issue might take place. So I would just encourage policy to kind of look at that language a little bit to see if it can be tightened and talk to the attorneys and to see if that's within legal right and it would help rather than hinder. So that's my only recommendation to policy. That's it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And right along with Chris, I agree with you, Chris. The only thing I want to be clear about is that I don't want to assume ever that our administrators and our staff isn't trained and isn't already doing all of these things. Because there's no guarantee when we alter the policy, it's going to rely on community trust.
100%.
And 100%. And there's no way that we're going to be able to tell anybody that that this has happened because the board won't know. We don't get a notification. We don't go in the school. That's beyond our pay grade. So as large as it is, it's way beyond our pay grade. But we have to have we trust our administrators to do what they're supposed to do. We trust the superintendent to do what she has committed to do. And if we're not satisfied with her, there's things we can do about that. But she's doing her job, and I want to assume that because she does ride a pretty tight rein, that people are doing what they're supposed to do. So I'm all in favor of doing whatever we need to do personally. I'm not even on the policy committee, but I'm in favor of doing whatever it is to strengthen public trust in what we are doing. But I just want to also say there's no guarantees that will happen if we alter this policy. And the other thing, one last thing, I'll try and be quick and brief. These kids we've grown up together. These are our neighbors. This is not like we're on a subway platform in New York City and you can't know what's standing next to you. These kids have played biddy ball together. These kids have grown up together. These are your neighborhood friends, your buddies that you've been with probably the bulk of your life, if not all of your life. And to think that we can't sort of rally together to love kids, to love all kids, if it's not loving, it's not right. And we do have laws in place for good reasons. And we have never been afraid to use law enforcement in this school district when it's been necessary. So if someone's getting hurt, and Jeff, I don't want to call you out in any way, but I'm going to a little bit. I want to believe, I just want to believe that we can do better than that. So many people have said that tonight. But these kids have grown up in this community and we need to love them. We need to, in my opinion, we need to foster them. We need to guide them. We need to be the role models that we want for them to grow up to be. And I just hope that as a community, we can do that. And these are hard conversations. Totally get it.
Yeah, they're not easy conversations. I understand that.
And so I just don't want to start talking about people that are different like there's something wrong with them or like there's something critical in nature. I don't understand necessarily, and it's not.
When you're done, I'd like to answer.
Actually, I've got Jim.
Go ahead.
Is that all right? Yeah.
No,
So
go
I
right
just,
ahead.
I can be done.
The insinuation is that I'm talking about assaults of danger. My concern is that you have a room that is a girls' bathroom and you have a whole group of girls that are declaring by their signature. It's true, we don't know what's in their head. But I'm guessing I have to give them the benefit of the doubt that these girls at this particular time in their life, junior high age, they're coming into womanhood, they're starting to have their monthly issue. They talk about these things among themselves. If there's a boy in that room with them, do they feel threatened? Do they feel uncomfortable? Without being a woman myself, I can pretty much guess that. I have daughters, I have brothers, I have sisters, So I'm quite certain that it doesn't always jump to the issue of assault. It's the assault of the soul. The child is feeling uncomfortable, threatened, doesn't mean physically, threatened though, because they're not comfortable there. We're ignoring all those. This policy to me is a nightmare in the sense that you could have a girls' room and a boys' room and those people go there. The people of that biological sex go in those rooms. Mm-hmm. There are other people that have emotional, mental, sexual issues where they feel uncomfortable going into the room that is their biology, their biological sex. What's wrong with them using a room that is separate? Because I've heard the very same language reversed around and say, well, what's wrong with all the girls that are uncomfortable? What's wrong with them using a bathroom that's single use? Well, who's being discriminated against here? The girl that goes into the room that says girls, but she feels uncomfortable in the girls' room, so she has to leave the girls' room and go to a unisex room? Who's got the burden of discrimination on them now?
May I just have a quick response?
We're ignoring all of those feelings and we're only concentrating.
Response
Yeah,
I've got.
very quick.
And again, I don't like to project. I'm not trying to read anyone's mind. Please don't try to read mine. I'll talk plainly. You know I will.
I know you will. So is Sarah still here?
Yes. Yeah.
Have more than 200 girls come to your office because they're uncomfortable?
No, about 17 total.
Thank you. And do you deal with that?
Yes.
Thank you. Next.
And Jim, I know you had your hand up, but Aura did too, and I'm not sure.
Right.
Who was?
I'm old, I'm easy.
I just wanted to
You've softened.
comment from my point of view about this policy. Write it down. So this policy is in place for a reason, and because we live in such a divided time, we need to seek to understand one another. And I believe that having this meeting is a way that we are doing that, and I'm extremely grateful to you guys for that. As a non-binary student, slash a member of the LGBTQIA community, I believe this policy enables a population that is heavily discriminated against, that extra feeling of safety in our community, in our school community. And I'm extremely grateful for that. And it honestly shows how much we've grown. That's what I think.
Thank you.
Trying to remember what I was supposed to talk about.
At this point, I know, right?
Where are your car keys?
I don't know. Take me home.
Absolutely.
Anyway, all joking aside, part of our problem is that students, and I know Sarah mentioned that 17 students have come to her feeling uncomfortable. And so much of this, and this has happened to me personally, I've had a child come to me and say, "Grandpa." Now that everybody knows who it was. I heard this happening, and I talked to a young girl who she was younger than my granddaughter. She was very scared, very upset. I understand that. But my granddaughter cannot go to the principal and say, "I heard this happening." Whoever, and I've heard that from, and I've known a lot of people that have said, this is, I know this is happening, but the students that are uncomfortable are feeling that have reported feeling threatened, have not gone to the principal and reported it. I told my own granddaughter, I did tell her, get a whole group and everybody line up at the nurse's bathroom, and if they're late for class, go get a tardy slip. It's an excused tardy. But anyways, that if that child, any child is in a restroom looking at another individual in that same restaurant, I don't care whether you're male, female, trans, blue, white, green, I don't care. If somebody's being threatened, that needs to be reported if they're acting in a threatening manner. If I stand up to you and I get too close to you and I start staring you in the eye and we're in the restroom, I'm 6 foot, used to be 6'2", I'm a lot shorter now, but I could scare somebody, and that's not right. And so we need to protect all the students from being intimidated. And the only way to do that is for those that feel intimidated for a reason, should go right to the principal and make a complaint. I'm sorry to throw you under the bus, Sarah, but enjoy the view.
But that is exactly what we've said. We need
All
to know
along.
who, we need to know when, we
I
need
know.
to know what bathroom, so that it can be thoroughly
I'm
investigated.
actually talking to
And
the
we'll do
parents in
it.
some respect that we need to get a report. I don't know, I have heard my own granddaughter mention this kid is that or that kid is this. I don't care. I don't want to know. I do not know who it is. I have no knowledge of that person. But if that person who is probably the what appears to be the crux of this matter.
We want to stay at a higher
I
level and
know, I
not
don't
talk
care.
about
I'll
a
leave it.
person, well.
But you know,
an
it's
issue, yeah.
we need to get the kids to report if there's something to report. And just saying it's so doesn't make it so.
Right.
Make a complaint, follow up, and I'm sure the administration will follow up.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, I like so many of the comments, and especially Becky's about love and kindness have to be part of it. And when we're talking about who to protect, we do want to protect everyone. But children who are transgender, as Matt, I loved his comment about the don't ask, don't tell policy. Not the gays weren't already there. They didn't just pop up. So I believe that transgender children have been in our school systems for years and years and have suffered on being uncomfortable. It's those of us who are cisgender, as we say, who haven't in the same way. Everybody has discomforts. And so there is a focus now on how to make a group that has felt uncomfortable be part of things in a way that still protects everyone. And I think this is a good policy to do that. And at my age, and Jim once thought he was the oldest one here, but he isn't.
Tick me off.
But
Not hard.
these terms, cisgender and everything, to people my age, and how do they want to be called? That's all new. It's like putting on new shoes that are a little stiff. And guess what? They'll get comfortable after a while. We have to work through these things together and protect everyone with love and kindness.
Thank you.
So the next step in terms of policy, because policy committee needs to, wrap up and make some decisions on how you want to proceed. Is it the wish of the policy committee to make some changes, tighten it up based on, some of the recommendations by Chris? Do you want to keep it as is and move forward? I just need some guidance from the committee.
I like that we have this policy. I like that it provides guidance. I like that it complies and comports with Maine law and federal law as we know it. I would want, if we change anything, I want to make sure we're doing it in a thoughtful way, in a way that continues to respect the spirit of the law and the intent of the policy that we're using, so that LGBTQIA+ students can feel comfortable in the bathroom, that they need to feel comfortable. The point, right, that we're getting to is that there's a discomfort that happens as we adjust to using this policy. I could also see a potential, I'm a little concerned about the shall should kind of language, just in the sense that there's that obligatory piece that I wouldn't want to compel anybody to do that. At the same time, Jim's point, that's going to be pretty clear pretty quickly when somebody uses the bathroom. I don't know. I would want to have more discussion before we change that. I don't want to kick the can too much, but this isn't just something I'm ready to make a decision on changing right now because of the compulsory element there. I can see some potential value maybe in some language that would include a clear penalty for if there's some sort of, I wrote down the phrase, sort of lewd or spoof LGBTQIA+ presentation, like somebody's faking it for some reason. I don't know how we determine that. I'm concerned about us being the arbiters of who's feeling what when. So I could see some potential in being clear. Look, if people abuse this policy, they're at the same penalty process as any other policy violation. And I just want to finish out, problems in group bathrooms are not just a transgender issue. Very, very clearly that there's other things we want to be clear about with bathrooms anyway.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, behavior is what we need to be looking at, not just what the presentation is. If you feel, you could be threatened as a cisgendered girl by a bunch of other girls. Bullying is bullying. And so this policy, I think, as I said before, was really just to protect those who are trans from the bullying and being in the bathroom that they identify with. So I think if you talk about Yeah, just any kind of threatening behavior, whether it's a transgendered or gay student or a cisgendered student, it doesn't make any difference. It's about the behavior and the actions of the people in the bathroom. So if someone gets up on a stall and looks in, it doesn't matter whether that's a cisgender girl or a transgender girl. You don't do that. That's an invasion of privacy. And in the girls, everything's a stall. So really, if they know because they see something, that would be a bullying situation because nobody's exposing themselves in the bathroom. I know in the boys' bathroom, they still have some urinals in some of the bathrooms. That would be more of an issue if you had a trans boy. And I would think that they would probably go into a stall because it would be very hard. So I don't think we really need to be focusing on anything other than bullying behavior of any kind in any place, but especially in the bathroom.
Policy that will address that.
Yeah,
separately.
specifically, yeah.
I don't think it should be intermingled with
yeah,
this.
yeah.
I'm weighing in on that too, because I think you do have policies that,
Yes.
that relate to misconduct. And I would be very concerned about having a special provision in a policy like this that said, if you misuse this, then something's gonna happen, because that seems to suggest that you think that this is a population that is more likely to misuse it. So I think we
No.
really need to be very careful to separate gender expansive issues from
General
Yeah.
general,
I agree.
behavior.
yeah.
Thank you.
Jen?
Jack, yeah.
I have something that I'd like to read quickly that I think is germane at this point. I have a tendency to really lose the plot of what I'm saying halfway through in the game, so I wrote it down. In the interest of making sure my words are as effective as possible, I'm gonna read them out loud. It was a book my kids liked when they were little. I couldn't find it tonight. I wasn't able to locate it. It's not new. Teragomi was Japan's most prolific children's artist. Originally published the book Everyone Poops in 1977. I love his illustrations, but I think the point here is encapsulated fairly fully by the title. Everyone poops. Everyone pees. Every student and every human needs access to a bathroom when nature calls. It's basic biology. It's basic humanity. What I have to say next is not as basic, nor as easy to hear. In 2022, the state of Oklahoma passed a law that requires students to use the bathroom and locker facilities associated with the sex on their birth certificate. Earlier this month in Oklahoma, a non-binary teenager named Nex Benedict, who had reported being bullied at school, was assaulted and injured in the girls' bathroom. They collapsed and died the next day. Nex's death, whether caused by or catalyzed by or even unrelated to their being assaulted at school, it highlights the point that others have made in this forum. Transgender and gender diverse students are more likely to be subjected to harassment and violence just because of their identity. And they deserve the very intentional protection under the law that our main lawmakers have seen fit to provide. Lastly, and I know this has been covered really extensively by now, but the fact that we're still here in this meeting tells me that it needs repeated at least once more. The Maine Supreme Judicial Court ruled in Doe versus Clenchey in January 2014, 10 years ago, that denying a transgender student the right to use the communal bathroom corresponding to their gender identity is discrimination again under the Maine Human Rights Act. It was a landmark case, and the story of the young woman behind it, Nicole Maines, is both powerful and heart-wrenching. If you have never read her story, I would recommend you check out the book, Becoming Nicole. I also brought a couple other books that are designed to educate those who work with or are parents of gender expansive children. If you're interested in taking a look at them, the bottom line is that parents and community members who are advocating for us to change this policy are in effect, if not in intent, asking us to discriminate against one type of student in a way that is patently illegal in our state. We cannot, nor should we, contemplate changing our policy in that way. I believe that we as a board made the correct decision in adopting policy ACAAA, and I think we ought to affirm that decision and go home. That's it. That's what I had to say.
Tony, specifically with regards to this policy, to address Chris's concern possibly, the only thing I would see for amendment or addition to this, because it's already been approved from the legal side of the house and everything, and the policy, multiple readings or whatever, that it is a solid policy. But if for any member of the public who might have issues or questions or confusion over certain things, an additional bullet point of clarity type of thing. So it doesn't adjust or whatever, the policy, but just, write a sentence, parentheses, this is what we're actually saying type of thing. So I would say the only changes that policy should be made is for explanation, clarifications, pick whatever verb you want to use to just make things a little more clear. And I mean, and I had a conversation with someone the other day, another lawyer actually, about policy versus law. You go to law school for 3 years and law, whatever, sorry, I'm screwed it up, but I'm sure it's pretty long and a whole lot of words, $50 words and 5-syllable words. But the policy is the Cliff Notes version of that says what we're doing. I'm aging myself saying Cliff Notes, but it's a snapshot for a teacher, and even our policy is long. We don't have many policies that are this long and detailed. So I would say just the only changes I would like to see is for clarity's sake, not content-wise, or explaining it a little further.
Yes, the a clarity piece, that Cliff Notes, Spark Notes, whatever we're getting to.
Policies for dummies.
Yeah.
That could be me.
So I guess knowing that
Yeah.
we're well past the time that we had set aside.
Thank you.
Maybe a recommendation, after listening to everyone, is that you and I, as chair, take a look again at the policy to see if where there are places where it could be clarified or tightened. And then make sure that that is run by the attorneys.
Counsel, yeah.
Right, to make sure that there is no violation as a result, and then bring it back to the policy committee to take a look at for their feedback.
Be happy to, Molly.
I was just going to say, I'm in support of a strong review simply because so many people spoke and asked for us to make amendments. And I don't know the specific amendments that they want us to make, but I think that the policy should be in place and in protection. But I just don't want to dismiss the many requests to make amendments and just really look closely at it. I think Chris's points were.
We'll take a look at it to see if there's a way of tightening it.
Right.
But
it doesn't mean that it will result in anything. I'm just saying that I really think we need to listen and hear that.
I thought when the two of you are deliberating, I'm sure Sarah Sims and possibly the high school principal might know any ways in which they bang into something with the. Yeah.
Can we put in the policy like a for example, when we're talking about the situation, which is that, if someone, when we're talking about it, someone's gender identity is female, even though biologically they were born as a male or appeared to be born as a male, because sometimes that's not very clear. That, if someone comes in dressed as a female, hairstyle as a female, goes to the bathroom and washes their hands and leaves, if they're accosted, that would be a violation of this law. Just to kind of clarify things, so it's just like you're going in, you're doing your business, you're not doing anything else.
Many times we've referred to this as our bathroom policy, but there's 5 lines in this policy, it's a 5-page policy that refer to the bathroom. And so I just want to make sure that, the policy as a whole, we're looking at the whole thing.
It's far more expansive.
Right, it's far
Absolutely,
more
of course.
expansive, correct.
It covers a lot more ground than just
Yeah.
the bathroom, exactly.
That seems to be the sticking point. for
I
most of the
completely agree.
parents.
It's certainly what I think has brought us here.
Okay,
So-
is that's what we'll do?
That sounds like a plan to me, unless anything further to.
Is there any?
Absolutely not. I'm good. Come let the woman sit down.
You love coming here?
I do. More.
There's no motion.
No way.
No, there's no motion, there's no vote, we'll work out, we'll bring it back. I don't know exactly what policy committee meeting it will be brought back. With all that's going on, I can't promise it will be next week. It may be the following month, or I just don't know, but we'll work on it.
Yep. So, I'd like to take Jack's suggestion and let's all go home or elsewhere. I appreciate everybody showing up and talking through this, navigating this. I appreciate that there's a lot of thoughts on this, and I really appreciate that we could come together as a community to talk through what is going on here. So, thank you very much. Good night.
Yes.